Presentation of Learning, Creative Crafting, by me, Jala Davis. But before we get into my POL, let's talk about the word honesty. The theme of my POL is honesty. You'll find out why later. Throughout my time as a freshman at Marstown High School, my path hasn't been easy or straightforward. There have been many challenges and moments where I had to rethink my ideas, especially in the Life Design Lab. Now let's talk about my possible project ideas. As a kid, I was always expressive. I loved talking, so it led me to my love of writing. I thought about that for my project. I thought about writing a novel. Writing has always been a passion of mine, and I've always wanted to create a full story. But then it had to be realistic. I realized, due to my poor time management, I know I wouldn't have enough time for it. So I moved on to another idea. Next, I thought about exploring global issues like gun violence or true crime. These were issues that mattered to me, and I thought they could have a real impact, but the more I considered them, the more I worried about being insensitive. I realized these topics could unintentionally hurt victims or their families, and I didn't want that on my conscience. So I kept brainstorming. I knew I wanted my project to be meaningful, but also something creative and unique. I wanted to make something that would catch attention, something others wouldn't necessarily think of, and that's when I remembered seeing a scale model on TikTok. People were making these intricate, detailed models of cities, parks, mountains, and everything. And I thought I could do that too, but what would I make? At first, I thought about modeling a mountain range, but the idea felt cliche. Mountains are beautiful, but they weren't personal to me. I wanted my project to be something that mattered to me personally, something I could connect with, and that's why I started thinking about historical or cultural places. Scale models often have a story behind them, a history that gives them meaning, so I began researching historical sites in New Jersey. I looked into places like the Marstown National Historical Park, Princeton Battlefield, Washington Crossing State Park, and others. These are all significant and fascinating places, but I realized I had never actually been to any of them. If I wanted this project to be authentic, I needed a place I had experienced and that reflected on my own life and my own community. That's when I started thinking closer to home. I thought about places I've actually been, places I've seen not just once but multiple times. That's why I chose the Marstown Green. The Marstown Green isn't just a place I've passed so many times, but I've seen people walk through it, sit, talk, and just live their everyday life. It's a place that feels familiar, even if I never really thought deeply about it before this project. Choosing it made my project feel more real because it connected me to my actual life and community. So what did I do? I created a scale model of the Marstown Green, but before I could build anything, I had to understand it. I had to research its history, its purpose, and why it mattered. I learned that it's not just a park, but a place with historical significance and a role in the community. That research helped me see it differently, not just as a place I passed by, but as something meaningful. Then came the process of actually building the model, and this is where I faced the most challenges. I had to plan everything carefully, what materials I would use, how big the model would be, and how I would recreate the layout. I had to think about the proportions and details, making sure everything looked accurate. There were moments where I had to redo parts because they didn't look right, and that was frustrating. There were times where things didn't stick or didn't line up the way I wanted them to, and I had to figure it out by myself. There were also moments where I felt unmotivated. Since this isn't something I naturally love doing, it was hard for me to stay excited about it. I had to push myself to keep going, even when I didn't feel like it. And that's one of the most important parts of this project. Learning how to keep working on your project, even if your motivation's not there. And that leads me to saying something I've been wanting to share. I want to be honest about it. Even if this project wasn't my favorite, it was creative. I enjoy writing and storytelling much more than building and crafting. Writing feels natural to me, while this project just felt like something I had to work on and had to connect harder with. But at the same time, that's exactly why it mattered. This project pushed me out of my comfort zone in a way I never experienced before. It made me work differently, think differently, and express ideas in a way I'm not used to. Instead of using words, I had to use visuals, structures, and design to communicate with something. And even though it was difficult, it helped me grow. But beyond school, this project would also help me understand something real about my world and community. By focusing on the Marshtown Green, I started to see my town differently. Before this project, it was just a place I passed by, but through my research, I began to understand its history and importance. I realized that the places in our community aren't just random, they have meaning, stories, and value. This project helped me feel more connected to Morristown. It made me pay attention to the environment around me, and it made me appreciate something local that I used to overlook. In the real world, that matters, because being aware of your community helps you feel like you're more a part of it. It also taught me skills that go beyond the classroom. Planning, time management, problem solving, and persistence are things that apply to real life situations, not just in school projects. Learning how to stay committed to something, even when it's difficult or not your favorite, is something I'll need in the future, whether it's in school, work, or personal goals. So what did I learn or improve in? I learned patience because this project could not be rushed. I had to take my time and accept things wouldn't be perfect right away. I improved my planning and organization skills because I had to think about this. I had to think about this and break this project into steps. I had to be intentional about every part of the process. I strengthened my research skills by learning how to find information and apply it in a meaningful way. I developed problem-solving skills because when things didn't go as planned, I figured out solutions instead of giving up. I improved my habits on becoming more disciplined and consistent with my time and effort. I learned about engagement, understanding that sometimes you have to create your own motivation. And I learned about purpose, that even if something isn't your favorite, it can still be meaningful and important for your growth. So how do I know I learned or improved? I know because I can see the differences when I start from where I started and from where I ended. At the beginning, I was unsure and constantly changing my ideas. By the end, I had completed the project that required effort, planning, and persistence. I can see it in my model. It represents more than just the Marshtown Green. It represents my growth, my effort, and my ability to stick with something even when it's challenging. I can also feel the growth in myself. I'm more patient, more focused, and more willing to take on challenges outside my comfort zone. This project taught me that learning isn't always about enjoying every moment. It's about growing through the process and taking something valuable from it. In conclusion, even though this project wasn't my favorite, it was one of the most important life lessons and learning experiences I've had this year. It let me grow not just as a student, but as a person. It connected me more with my community, taught me real life skills, and showed me the value of persistence. I'm proud of what I created, not just because how it looks, but because everything it represents, my effort, my growth, and my willingness to challenge myself. And if there's one thing that I take away from this experience, is that the things that challenge you the most are the things that prepare you the most for the real world. Thank you.